Welcome to the Strong Enough podcast, where we talk about the challenges and celebrate the triumphs of people from all walks of life. I'm your host, Claudia. Today's guest is going to talk about how she has been able to shift and change throughout her life and how she's learned not to be ashamed of doing that. She's also going to talk to us about burnout and how even high-achieving people can suffer from self-doubt and imposter syndrome. Please help me welcome Agate Lerolle. Agate, how are you today?
I'm very good, Claudia, and it's really a pleasure to get to know you.
It is a pleasure to get to know you as well, and I have to share with the audience that, we've been chatting for a few moments, and I already love you, and I already know that you're going to provide so much value to the audience today. And I want to get that started. So would you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. I'm a mutt, I would say. I was born in Morocco. I was raised in Malaysia. I arrived in France, where I'm originally from, at 9. I traveled. I lived in Spain and England, and arrived to New York and made it home for the past 25 years. So this is a place where I love the diversity of culture. It feels home for me. Um, I've had also plenty of professional lives. I've been in banking, I've been in recruiting, I work for myself, for big corporations, for um, others. Um, I became a coach after burning out, and I think I'm morphing into another next iteration. I'm sensing. And I'll say it right there. I'm a mom to 2 amazing boys. Um, and I'm on my 3rd husband.
Good for you. Good for
So,
you. Don't settle. Don't
no. Oh,
settle.
no. I always say there might be a 4th one, and it doesn't. So, yeah, I have a very rich experience, some easier than others,
Mhm.
but I'm embracing it all.
I love it. I love a lot that you just shared because so much of it relates to transformation and the ability to move through different phases and not feel like because you're in a particular phase, you can't change or move into another one. So, how did you get that ability? Because so many people feel like they're stuck, even if they're 20 or 25 and they're doing something and they feel like they can't do anything else. So was it your upbringing or was it something special that happened to you? What gave you the ability to be so versatile and have the strength to be able to change?
Um, I mean, I think that, early on arriving in a school where nobody spoke your language, and you're 4 or 5, is definitely a lesson you learn quickly to start, that you have to adapt. I think I did 10 schools by the age of 11 or something like that. So, and a lot of military people, have that ability. Um, And I think that the natural tendency is to go towards something secure and safe and solid, that I definitely had. And the feeling stuck is is very real. And I think that you can't force it. You can't force it. And eventually it kind of, um how can I say, it kind of like, um dismantles, like, when sand, it gets sanded out, like it's but there is a funny thing that we tend to resist, and we tend to get stuck, right? You know
Hmm.
that?
I've been there.
Yeah. How did it feel for you?
In the moment, comfortable.
Hmm.
I think even if it's not a good situation, we become comfortable in that situation. And, for me, there were times when I knew I needed to move on, but it was really difficult because I was afraid. I was
Hmm.
afraid of the unknown. And I finally got to the point where I realized the unknown had to be better than where I was. And so I had to be courageous and take that step. And I was right. The unknown, while scary, was so much better than where I was.
Hmm. I use often this quote that I just looked up because I don't want to butcher it, but I think I'm a late bloomer. I'm 50 plus, and I'm only coming into myself. And I beat myself so much for not being where I should be,
Mhm.
or where I thought it would be. But there's this quote by Anais Nin, who was a writer of erotic novels, and she said, "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom." And then we can't but just blossom. We have to blossom. And then when we blossom, something happens after, is then the perfume is released. So, um, yeah, I think it takes time.
I want to point out quickly that there's no way that you're 50 plus. I do have the knack on this podcast for having vampire guests. So people who
Yeah.
do not look their age in any way, shape, or form. So you have joined that club. Congratulations. So exciting to have you there. But I do want to talk a little bit about age because you said, where we're supposed to be.
Mhm.
And that is something that we feel, and I don't even know the ages, but at this age, you're supposed to be married. And at this age, you're supposed to have children. And at this age, you're supposed to have your career. And then you're just supposed to carry on with that. And don't forget, you have to come home and make dinner.
Mhm.
So, how were you able to get past that feeling in your career of, where I'm supposed to be and knowing that it was okay to move in a different direction?
So I would say I'm not your typical because my career is I've been working for myself for 15 years now. So I've kind of exited myself from, the matrix to a certain degree. But I'll tell you, um, my third husband is younger than me, and we've been married for 10 years now. And when I met him, he was a good 9 years. And so I was becoming 40 and he was 31. And right then I thought, okay, if this is going to last, let's talk about age right now because this was an interior dialogue I had.
Mhm.
I didn't tell him, but I thought, like, okay, I'm going to be in competition against women my age, women his age, and women much younger.
Mhm.
So I can't win that battle ever. That's a lost battle. And so I thought there will always be somebody with a smoother skin, a tighter, you know,
Mhm.
and but I thought since that's not where I'm going to position myself, but I can be the most interesting woman. And I thought, and there, good luck for finding somebody who'll be as interesting as me. And it worked. So I removed entirely the age thing. And I'm actually working also with time, consciously with time. I've let go of the watch
Mhm.
and I've started connecting with my internal bodies, meaning that I wake up just before my alarm. I still put an alarm, but I started befriending time and imagine that everything arrives at the right time at the right moment. And it's really very interesting what happens because there we go. Mic drop.
It was quite appropriate in that moment.
And so when I'm trying to learn to be in the present moment, like total debutante on this. But I find that when I'm in the present moment, all of a sudden you become timeless. There's like no time anymore. So it's really like I do experience with myself like that, and sometimes I just don't think about things, and you know,
How tough is it for you to be in the moment and kind of not conscious of time with, you know, the phones that we carry around now, everything that's kind of attached to us that seems to be constantly demanding or asking for our attention. How do you handle that piece of it, or how have you let that go?
very poorly, I have to say.
I love the honesty though.
But I keep doing it, and I think that what I'm doing better, though, is not beating myself for doing it poorly. And whenever I can, I remind and I get in the moment. And I want to say, because I don't think I answered really your question before of, people thinking that you're in your career that you could have done earlier, etc. I've um, used this analogy for my clients in terms of this, not being where you want to be. I don't know if you would call the movie Slumdog Millionaire.
Hmm.
So it's a young Indian who's raised in the slums and gets to a show where, it's asking question and has to answer the right question. And he's doesn't have education, but he answers all the questions right because they refer to a moment, to an experience he had, and he
Hmm.
wins the game. And I believe for many of us, and I think eventually I'll get there, to that slumdog millionaire moment, like at some point we're going to arrive in life and all that we have experienced will allow us to show up fully. And so if you take a sidetrack, it's not a sidetrack. It's not, it's you're accumulating your toolbox with knowledge and wisdom and whatever. And eventually you'll arrive and it'll make sense. So I'm
I
hoping
love that.
it
You
helps.
totally answered it. You mentioned earlier burnout, and I know a lot of people kind of don't know how to recognize it in themselves. When they do recognize it, they see it as a negative.
Yeah.
Um, it can affect, their entire life. But I know that you feel like there can be a blessing in burnout. And I would
Mhm.
love it if you would share a little bit about your mindset around burnout and how we can look at it as a blessing for us.
Yeah. So I think that's my mission, is to really shift the the perspective we have on burnout. And I do believe that more women burn out than men, more younger people burn out. And burnout signals that you no longer are able to cope with this current linear, rigid um, bully system. I'm going to say it. And so it's a good thing. You're burning out because your soul is exhausted of having to follow certain rules that don't make sense or, anything. But so burnout is really the wake up to shit. We're in hustle culture and we can't take it anymore. So it's a good news.
Mhm.
And I say that it's the signal. So I use another metaphor because I love storytelling. But so a spaceship to take off from the ground needs a lot of fuel. But once the spaceship arrives in the atmosphere, you've seen it on TV, it detaches the tank because the tank is empty and heavy and useless. And then the spaceship fires another set of engine and goes into zero gravity, right? And so when I saw this spaceship, it was Apollo 11, I realized the paradox of letting go. You have to let go what served you to get to a certain level. And though that drive, that hustle, that resilience allows you to get to that level. But if you continue hustling and working hard and beating yourself up, boom, you crash. So one thing you said, we don't recognize the burnout because we're also in a hustle culture that has really um, put on a pedestal the self-improvement. So we get stuck in self-improvement. If I can do one more thing, one more thing, and one more thing. And so the click is you can't get out of the self-improvement wheel. You have to jump out. Because if not, you're just going to get dizzier. And there's always like there's a diet. You didn't eat your avocado. You didn't breathe the fresh air. You didn't like meditate. You didn't like get, you know.
I was having a conversation earlier today, kind of about something similar. And when you said one more thing, and we were talking about self sabotage and
Hmm.
how that can be a way to sabotage yourself of kind of loading your plate with too many things
Hmm.
so that then you're overwhelmed and can't do any of them.
Hmm.
Have you seen that happen as well?
Totally. Sabotage is like again another like negative word, but I call it success intolerance. Is that your cup is filled to the brim and you cannot add something without spilling. And it's your system and your nervous system has a capacity to hold things. And then if you put too much, so the trick is like if you want to hold more, you have to either empty what is or expand your container. And you can't expand your container too fast. You have to learn to really expand your nervous system to hold more intensity, more capacity. Um, and so yeah, it's totally a fact. Yeah.
What are some of the things that you think people can recognize that would indicate either burnout or the success intolerance occurring so that they can start to make some changes?
That's a great question. It's like, how can you recognize something you can't see? But
Hmm.
I would say hmm, when you're really exhausted, when you've lost the desire, and it's a fine line, when you've lost desire, when you're tired, or you become there's a bit of resentment for not being recognized or of putting in more work than like when you feel that you're on repeat.
Mhm.
It's very subtle, but it's like there's a little bit of anger, there's a little bit of resentment, there's a little bit of, it's not yoo-hoo like joy. No? Does that sound
It
right?
does. And for me, I was smiling as you said that because I was thinking back to a specific period in time, and that's exactly what it felt like. That little bit of resentment, that little bit of anger. I kept grinding, but I wasn't happy about it.
Mhm.
And that was a shift. And so when you say that, to look back now and see that and go like, oh yeah, that did happen to me, and I did end up making a change a while later, but I just was frustrated for years, to be honest. So I love
Oh,
that.
yeah. We talked about pain, right?
Hmm.
And when you plow through the pain, and when the pain is a little thing, like you have the pain, you have to go to the dentist. If you wait, it's going to be the root canal or something,
Hmm.
And so when we feel that little resentment professionally or in relationship, like it's important to really um, take care about it. And I wouldn't go. and that's where finding somebody, whether it's a coach, whether it's someone that is external to you, because friends and family don't want you to change.
Hmm.
They want you like in your in that space. Um, Work colleagues can be, um, so finding somebody who's neutral, who can really help you see yourself is is super helpful, I found. I have that for myself, and I think it's really because we don't see what we can't see. So, but others will pick up on it.
So I love that you just talked about friends and family and that you
Mhm.
said they often want us to stay right where we are. So I see a lot of people who are trying to make changes. They are trying to level up their lives, and they get a lot of pushback
Mhm.
from, their close circle, and so sometimes they end up reverting back to where they were because their friends and family didn't want them to change. I would love it if you would talk a little bit about, how people can have the confidence to keep going in the face of that adversity of those closest to you that are maybe putting up the barriers because, they want to keep you held back where they are.
Well, listening to your podcast and being reminded on a regular basis, like literally having, list because you have to counter the voices. And the people in your family and the people who love you um, want you in the same spot. Nobody has any benefit in anyone changing,
Mm-hmm.
So listening to podcasts that are regularly reminding you of that, because you tune into your own um, inner compass, right? And then finding a small group of women. I've been part of a woman circle, a little coven. We're 7. We've never met in person. Most of us have never met in person on 2 different continents, 3 different continents. And for 2 years, every month, we spent 2 hours together. And everyone was leading each other one after
Mm-hmm.
the other. Like, hey, this is the book I would like to come up, or this is a subject I would like to explore. This is a practice that worked for me. So it was really nice. And they were completely external to my life, and at the same time they were an anchor.
Mm-hmm.
And listening to people, to podcasts like yours that uplift, that really uplift, that a real story by real people,
Mm-hmm.
that not trying to sell you something.
Right.
uh,
So I want to talk about self doubt
mhm,
because one of the things, that I try to work with people on is imposter syndrome, which I
mhm.
think, they go hand in hand. And what surprises a lot of people is that even very successful individuals deal with imposter syndrome, self doubt, things that make them feel like they're wearing a mask and that they're not good enough. So, what do you think is causing, all of us to feel that way, or the vast majority of us to have those moments, even when we are successful, that we still don't believe we deserve it?
Okay, you ready for a little story?
I love it. I'm ready.
So I'm going to take you to ancient Greece. In ancient Greece, there was the best warriors of all time was called Achilles, right? And in mythology, he was the warrior. And his story is he was the son of a goddess, and this goddess was called Thetis. And Thetis, there was a curse on her. I don't know why, what she did, but the gods were infuriated and put a curse on her. And the curse was that her son would kill his father. So let me tell you, no other god wanted to have a child with her because they didn't want to be killed by their son.
Mm-hmm.
So she had a son with a human. So Achilles was born human, but and I call Tetis the first helicopter mom in history to give her son extra powers. She, holding by the heel, dipped him in the Styx River, that made his whole body invincible, except at the heel, where the water didn't touch. I call my clients Achilles because when I see their superpowers, they might be super quick, super smart. They might be have extra charisma. They have some superpower, right? Extra intelligence, a capacity to see patterns that no one else sees, a resilience, right? So they have extra powers. And they think these powers are normal, but no, they're extra. But they have also an Achilles heel, and that is self doubt. And when they doubt, it feels mortal for them because they started life and with this superpower, they went through boom, 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 like growing, unlike normal humans who like woke up, stood, like fell down, went up, like fell down. They went pretty, thanks to their superpowers, pretty easily up. But when you know, shit hits the fan, all of a sudden they shift and they start thinking, oh, they don't see there's a problem here. I need to overcome that problem. They think, ooh, I can't solve that. I must be the problem. And so the thing is, I tell them, no, you're just an Achilles. You have superpowers and you have self doubt. Just, don't let it absorb you and don't give in to the spiraling, which easier said than done.
Mhm.
But that's how I reframe it.
So there are a lot of women who feel like they have no superpower. They feel like they have
Mhm.
no power at all, quite frankly. So, how do you help people find their superpower or recognize it? Because it's one person at a time, but what do we do for those women who are just in such a bad place that they feel like they have no power at all?
Mhm. Um, First, I think we have to recognize there's some situations are really hard, and and most Achilles don't see their superpower because it's a natural gift. They don't see it as a gift. I've been coaching. I've been recruiting for 19 years at this point. Well, not the coaching, but in total, I can tell you most people have a superpower. I've met very few people who don't. And but or and because they take it for granted, it's go and see where it flows naturally for you. Is it relationship that you're really good? Is it, I don't know, aesthetics? Is it being in the moment? Is it raising kids? Is it we all have superpowers. And and the thing is, these superpowers tend to be hidden because they're often, especially for women, linked to intuition, imagination, um, um, all these things that are a bit more subtle and that the outside world doesn't measure. We measure KPIs, we measure the hard, the measurable, those things. And so those superpowers are usually non-tangible. And so it's really starting to cultivating that, connection with self and fighting. And it's not easy, but that's the where the gold is. Like it's literally where the gold is. And so that's very important to really um I want to encourage everybody. I mean, and usually it's the thing that you do naturally and that you do your way. And yes, it doesn't fit in society, but it will fit. We are changing, society's shifting drastically, and I do believe in this millionaire slumdog
Mhm.
moment where like you'll need your superpower because that's what will be valued.
I love that you mentioned intuition because, particularly as women, we often don't trust our gut or our intuition, and it can end up being, you know, but just problematic or dangerous, if we don't trust our gut. How do we as women learn to better trust our intuition when everything inside of us is telling us not to?
Mhm. Look, um, it's easier said in retrospect, and I think sometimes we need to fuck it up to learn the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, if it's all natural, we don't realize until we fall that, oh, that where I tripped. Um, wow, you have like big questions, Claudia. I feel like I'm like under like the spotlight. This is so many questions. Uh, but so we are also, let's recognize, because and this is where I really would love to sit for a second, is people are always beating themselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? Let's recognize that we are in a hustle culture society, patriarchal society. We've been fed marketing for the past 30 years. Okay, drink this, you'll be better. Drink that, you'll like, you'll know, drive this car, you'll fuck more. Like, this is like all these things that have been like bombarded, that we've like drank like Kool-Aid like
Mm-hmm.
super easily. And now we're like, what's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you, honey. You've just been, you know, in a reality that has been created, and we created, like, that's part. So I want to say, we're all like pretty amazing to have survived 30 years of marketing, you know? And so, yeah, intuition feels off, but I was writing in my newsletter that's I'm posting, today, that when I interview, I smell the bullshit. I smell the justification. I smell the
Mm-hmm.
people are trying to convince me. I smell when they're trying to distract me. And I smell it because I've done it. Okay. And so I feel the cringiness. I'm like, ooh, I remember that one. Ooh. So, it's waking up to that and not beating yourself for it. That's it. Like, it's waking up to, um, yeah, we're learning to sober up
Mm-hmm.
from decades of marketing and being sold, all these fantasies. Barbie.
Right. Right. So you talked about the hustle culture,
Mhm,
and that affects nearly all of us. But I know that you talk about a work easy, play easy
mhm,
mindset. So I would love if you would share a little bit about what that is and how people can start integrating that into their lives.
mhm. Um, yeah, so back to the spaceship, I know that there's a space that's called zero gravity.
Hmm.
And when you're a spaceship and you've gone beyond the gravity of Earth, there are different rules that apply. And so you don't need a lot of fuel, and it's not the same extracting fuel. So one of the things that um, I've learned for myself, I share with my clients, and I practice is, what fuels me, what is renewable fuel for me. So going to the gym or seeing some friends, or um, these are all things that I have to do. Like, it's more doing. So for me, the renewable flow is anything when I can be. Where can I be by myself, or be, or pausing for 12 seconds, or be in my body, or be me when I'm with friends. Just like being. It's really the being versus the doing. And there's this guy who wrote a book in the 80s, I think, called The Five Love Language. Have you heard of
Hmm.
it?
Hmm.
Yeah. Do you know your love language?
I am quality time.
Okay. And the second you have, because there's five love language. So what is,
Yes, I believe my second is words of affirmation.
yeah. So just to refresh, if people don't know, there's quality time, so spending time with words of affirmation, gifts, physical gifts, um, physical touch,
Mm-hmm.
and chores,
Right.
action,
Acts of
uh,
service.
acts of service. Thank you. So I'm acts of service and words of affirmation. These are my dominant. And when I discovered the love language, I was like, I did it for my kids. And one of my son, Charlie, is, we're the opposite love language.
Mm-hmm.
So he is gifts and physical touch. So when I saw him down, I would make pancakes and I would tell him what they, such a cool kid, that was like, didn't,
Mm-hmm.
didn't affect him. When I learned it was gift and physical touch, I'm like, hey, I bought you your French, your favorite croissant, because I'm French, or I bought you, your favorite socks, and I gave him hugs,
Mm-hmm.
and that was his love language. But what I loved about the love language, what I think is the secret weapon of the love language, is not only to meet other people where they are and
Mm-hmm.
learn to speak, but what I found that it's like how you love yourself. So I'm acts of service and I'm word of affirmation. So to replenish my tank, I need to have, I call a friend and say, hey, can you do this with me? I don't want to do it by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I asked my husband, like, hey, can you do this? Like, or how can I do that for me? And like, maybe I'll go and get a massage. I want somebody to give me a massage. Like, I get
Mm-hmm.
my nails done. Like stupid stuff. And words of affirmation. I'll practice saying nice thing to myself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way to like have a renewable fuel is amping up your love for yourself because you can't never have enough of it.
I love that because so many of us expect everything to come externally, and we don't take the time to realize that we can fill that tank sometimes by our own actions. So I
Hmm.
love that.
And that's because we've been fed. Oh, somebody's gonna come and kiss you, and boom, boom, you'll be a princess. A job will come, and boom, boom, you'll be successful. No,
Mm-hmm.
it comes from inside out, and that's what the it's counterintuitive because it's against the message that we've been told.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go back there, and slowing down, that's the other thing, which is, back to what I said, like staying young, just slow
Mm-hmm.
down. Like time, like the present moment is there. And that's counterintuitive because I was like, I'm in New York, like go, 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 like
Right.
no,
It's the
I mean,
hardest place in the world to slow down.
I went to LA and I was like, hey, can I have a coffee and thing? And they're like, are you from New York? And I'm like, yes.
How'd you guess?
How'd you guess? But slowing down. So that's my 2 cents. But and I think we're doing a great job. I think we're doing a great job. Like people have much more than they can expect. So like give yourself a little,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love it. We're going to take a quick turn here before I
Hmm.
let you go because we have absolutely got to talk about tattoos. Now, I learned earlier about you that you don't have any tattoos, and I learned
Hmm.
why you don't
Hmm.
because you have a needle, and I'm going to call it a phobia. And here's why I'm going to call it a phobia because you said when you had your children, you did not even get an epidural
Hmm.
because of the fear of the needles. So
Hmm.
everybody just let that sink in for a moment.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
15
what I'm
hours
going
the
to,
first one.
yeah, see, there you go. So what I'm going to ask you is let's take pain and needles
Yeah.
out of the equation. If you were going to get a tattoo, what would you get and where would you put it?
Ooh. So I would there's a phrase that says that to art, like tat tvam asi, which means I am that I am. I am all of that. And I often write that in my journal because I think that I accumulate these experiences, and this is expanding the experience. So I am all of that, and I am, and where would I put it? I think somewhere I can see it. I think in my wrist, or yeah, I think so.
I had
If it
wrist.
happened.
Yes. As you were talking about it, I was thinking she's going to say wrist because that's where you can see it. And it can be
Yeah.
dainty and cute. So I love it. And when tattoos become needle free and painless, well, they don't even have to be painless. They can just be needle free. We will have another conversation.
Yeah, I know. I will, and I'll come to you for more inspiration
Eh,
of what it could be
I
done.
I can help you. Agat, where can people find you? So if they want to learn more about what you do, if they want to kind of follow your journey, or if they want to talk a little bit more about spaceships, where can they find
Mhm.
you?
Yeah, I geek out on spaceship. Um, I have a Substack. I have a newsletter that I started 2 years ago, and it was originally done for selling my coaching services. And in the process, I discovered the joy of writing, and I'm sharing my journey. But I, you know, I love writing, and it's become a little rendezvous.
Hmm.
So I have a Substack with my name, Agate Lerolle, which is like I got the power, I got the blues, whatever day. Um, and my website or LinkedIn for work. I think it's the place where, and don't hesitate to connect and share your burnout. And I assure that there is a blessing in it. And I love to hear stories about that. So don't hesitate to reach me. I'd love to hear your story.
I love it. Agat, you have been absolutely amazing. I so appreciate you spending some time with me this lovely afternoon and sharing some of the ways that our audience can, recognize burnout, better themselves, and realize that it is absolutely never too late to do so. So thank you so much.
Never too late. Thank you, Claudia. I mean, I very grateful that you're doing this with your podcast. I'm doing this with my little newsletter, just to be sharing. I mean, I really bow to you for this work.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and follow us on social media so you'll never miss what's going on. Remember, until next week, you are strong enough and you are worth it.
Thank you for listening to the Strong Enough podcast. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform by searching Strong Enough. And on YouTube, we're on the Spear Talk channel. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Strong Enough Pod. If you have suggestions for an upcoming episode or a future guest, please reach out at strongenoughpod@gmail.com. Remember, you are worth it.